You're listening to MacTalk on the All Warrior Radio Network. All the different things that happened in and around Grand Forks, in particular the flood, and the cities coming back after the flood. Do you have a favorite story that you ever covered, Terry, that you look back and say, you know, that was a very cool story that I got a chance to be a part of and tell?
Yeah, I guess I do. It was the day that President Clinton came to view the devastation, and it was a very long day, and I found out very late that I was going to be on the air live doing this coverage, and I like to be prepared, and I wasn't able to be prepared that day, so I was very frustrated anyway. Mm-hmm. So it was a very long day. It was 7, 8 o'clock at night. A young man came up to me and handed me a piece of paper, and it had a phone number on it. And he said, "Would you please help me? I'm trying to find my girlfriend. We've been displaced in the evacuation." In those days, for people who don't remember, all of Grand Forks, East Grand Forks virtually was evacuated. Something like 50,000 people, the biggest evacuation since the Civil War at that time. Wow. We were told. Mm-hmm. And so what we were doing on television, and I know you were on radio as well, is trying to get people back together in the most primitive way imaginable. We would read names and telephone numbers and say, so-and-so is living at such and such a place. And so that's what we were doing. So anyway, this was probably the 10,000th of these notes that I had handled. And I said, okay, I'll do it. I was at the Grand Forks Air Force Base where people were being housed and where the president had come. So I took it back to the studio in town, gave it to the anchors. They read it on the air. Now it's about a week later, and I'm once again back at the Air Force Base. And the same guy comes up to me and he says, "I want to thank you for doing what you did. I was able to get a hold of my girlfriend, make connection with my girlfriend about an hour before my father's funeral. He told me it was important, but he didn't tell me why it was so important." And I've always felt that simple little silly, not silly, but on my part, simple thing to do was probably the most important thing I've ever done, not only on television, maybe in my life.
Wow. You know what? What a cool story, because it's just you doing your job and being a decent human being. And it is interesting when you're in the media. Sometimes you don't even know it in the way that you're touching people that listen. And it's one of I think the coolest parts about being in the media. But wow, what a cool story.
I always thought that the biggest story of my life would be one that I would research and prepare and have scripted, and the flood was none of those things, and it was unexpected, and it's something you couldn't really prepare much for, especially things like that.
Well, you know, and then, what's the only thing that comes through? Your decency and your humanity, which is probably the greatest qualities that you can have as a professional. You're listening to MacTalk on the All Warrior Radio Network.